Association will, through association, similar tendencies will be awakened within us because we have the potential. That's why Krishna, the devotees of Krishna, know the descent into this plane is really to give association. And then others hearing about the Shrotavyas, Kirtitavyas, Smartavyas, Chejtatabhayam. Hearing about, chanting about, remembering. The pastimes must be there. They're not, we're riveted to story in this world. But we just have, William James called adventures of the intelligence. Mundane writers telling stories. And people find them variously useful or useless. But these stories, we're talking a good story, what captures the imagination. This one, more than captures the imagination. That is dhyan, real meditation. It's taking you into another world. Many of the modern people, like the first-person shooter, the gamers, those things, we want to take this to the level where you are the movie. But again, it's from the mind, the mundane mind. Whereas these pastimes, when heard properly, the guidance of an expert, will reach the state where someone is within the pastime. They have a part to play within the pastime. Live streaming Leela. Then you have either that hearing such things, it can awaken similar such things, or by service to such a Mahabhagavata, it can be awakened. As Guru said, you can bypass the second-class stage through seva. So a third-class devotee serving a first-class devotee can bypass the analytical middle stage and go directly to Mahabhagavata. Even in the mundane world, people sometimes unwittingly become accessories to crimes. They do something they picked up the phone, they answered the call, opened the door, they did something, and then they get, in the whirlpool of some sort of criminal activity. That's in a negative sense. Agyata sukriti. Somehow people get wrapped up in the whirlpool of devotional activities. Can be in so many different ways. Unthinkable. Therefore, it's agyata. It doesn't need to be known other than in principle that it's possible. On some level, and here it's really on some level, like even remote contact with a very powerful virus can infect someone. If a mundane substance has such power, that a microscopic amount of some substance can enter your system and completely alter you, and bring you to the stage of mortality, then by parallel, some microscopic amount of spiritual substance can enter within you and take you to the immortal plane. That's a wonderful thing. Yadanucharita lila karna piyusha viput sakrita dana viduta danda dharma vinashta. Radharani in the Brahma Gita, she's saying, a drop of this hearing about Krishna has such powerful effect, will destroy your life. But it's a life that needs destroying. Dvandva vinashta. And that's a fact. Everyone who hears even a minuscule amount of Harikatha or something about Krishna becomes infected. And then the virus enters the system and expresses itself in time until it takes over the whole system. And rather than taking it, die to live. Finish with one, and the spiritual form begins to manifest. We're operating on the basis of acquired prejudice. Okay? So, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in one place, he makes an interesting observation. He says that when we acquired the prejudice, it was without thinking. But when it comes time to give up that acquired prejudice, then we have to think about it for a long time. We're not so many things we have to consider. They use a word in India, in Sanskrit, called sanskar. And sanskar is translated in different ways, but it means like mental impressions. Like a printing machine makes an impression, right? So what they mean by sanskar is we've lived many times and many life forms, reincarnation, all that, and each time you're getting one impression, another impression, another impression, another impression, and this is, you can say, clouding our consciousness. So when we try to reflect, like, who am I? What is my position in the world? Where have I come from? Where am I going? All these things. It's being filtered through the clouds of acquired prejudice or impressions. In the first verse of Shikshastakam, which is Mahaprabhu's famous 8 prayers, the first one he says, Cheto darpanam arjanam bhavamaha dabagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipatam punamritashvadanam param vijayate Sri Krishna sankirtanam. So in the first line, they say the mind is like a mirror. We got this mirror right here as a prop. Right? So they're saying a mirror, like this mirror, if we don't clean it, it will get another layer of dust, another layer of dust, and when it gets sufficiently covered by different layers of dust, you won't be able to see yourself reflected in the mirror. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in this one sloka, Yata Benol Garbas, he compares, we have the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness, like as different layers or coverings of consciousness. One's like dust, one's thicker, different things. So the method to overcome acquired prejudice is to take shelter at the lotus feet of Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, and Vaishnav. So, in the most primal Guru mantra, it says, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuram Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. The disciple is offering respectful obeisances to the Guru, saying, my eyes were like cataracted. You know cataracts? You know what a cataract is? Old people get it very often. Like they can't see properly anymore. So in this sloka, the disciple is saying, my eyes, they have like cataracts of what? Acquired prejudice and bias.
So I'm seeing everything through this bias or acquired prejudice. Then he's saying in the prayer, but you, I'm praying to my guru, you, like a surgeon, you know, laser surgery? That's how they do cataract surgery in the modern world. So he's saying, like, with pinpoint light, with the light of scriptures and the teachings of the Guru Varga, you remove the cataracts of bias and prejudice of my eye, and now I can see things properly. And back in the Shikshastakam sloka, where they're comparing the mind to a mirror that's accumulated so many layers of dust, it says Cheto Darpana, Darpan means mirror, Marjanam, and Cheta means consciousness. So he's saying the mirror of your mind, your consciousness, your way of seeing will be cleansed by chanting Krishna Nam under the direction of your Guru and Vaishnava. Here we're making a distinction, we're defining, connotating, we're increasing the connotation of what is meant by heart. Because from a mundane point of view, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhumiropo analovayu kamano bhutirevacha ahankara ityame bina prakritirashtadha. He outlines sequentially what are the 8 material elements. Bhumir, apo, vayu, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence, and ahankara, false ego. In the following sloka, it says, Apareyam itastanyam prakriti vidime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. He says that, but the jiva Shakti, what I just outlined is the prakriti, mundane energy. Jiva is a superior type of Shakti, which is above these 8 elements. So, although we don't normally think of it this way, or it's not the first verse that would come to our mind in terms of Sahajiyaism, Srila Guru Maharaj used it as a refutation of Sahajiyaism along these lines, that their idea is that by reconditioning the element of mind, the mundane element of mind, filling it with images of Krishna, making it accustomed to hearing certain sounds, that one will have some sort of epiphany and their swarup will manifest. Guru Maharaj is of the opinion that all of this must dissolve, right? Because the subtlest aspect is the ahankar, false ego, but then the buddhi, the mind, the body that's housing these elements, all of this must be dissolved. In what way? Or Gurudev gave a famous lecture called Dissolving the Pillars of Ego, right? Demolishing the pillars of ego. How? Not through some Buddhistic type of dissolution, but rather through service engagement, through dedication. Right? Biological expression of the soul's delusion is the body. It's the outcome of jiva's exploiting tendency, the desire to lord over matter. Sometimes he would quote Robinson Crusoe, Alexander Selkirk, the famous the man shipwrecked on the island, and he has a line where he says, I am the Lord of all I survey. So he's saying, this mood, this mania, that I'm the master, and detesting the very notion of servitude, or by extension, slavery, being subordinate, being submissive. In modern times, any qualities associated with this notion are considered undesirable and detrimental to developing oneself, right, and one's self-esteem, etc. So the body is the biological expression of the soul's delusion. That includes mind, intelligence. But the outcome of exploiting tendency, the biological outcome of exploiting tendency, if we become connected to the service plane, if we withdraw from being exploiting agents and become enriched with a dedicating tendency, then the body, mind, intelligence, which were the outcome of exploiting tendency, start to vanish, and the spiritual mind, intellect, body begin to manifest, the Swarup. Krishna only wants love and affection. Right? Whether it's from Chinese, American, Russian, Indian. This theme about heart, Krishna consciousness is a heart-to-heart connection. Right? So only the body, there's a Chinese body, a Thai body, American body, but there's not a Chinese soul, American soul, Thai soul, Indian soul. We say for every action, equal and opposite reaction. So there's some action in the past that necessitated that someone's born in China, someone's born in Thailand, someone's born in America, someone's born in Russia. But the important thing to understand is the heart-to-heart connection, from the heart of Krishna to the heart of the devotee. And that transcends geography, politics, geopolitical, socio-economic circumstances. Who is Bhagavan? Who possesses all these qualities. Wealth, opulence, beauty, knowledge, renunciation, strength, fame, all of that, to an infinite degree. And such a person, if you could find someone who had all of these qualities to the infinite degree, such a person would be irresistibly charming and attractive and qualified to be known as Krishna. That is the meaning of Krishna. That's what we're searching for. The imperfect is searching for the perfect. We're searching for the ideal. We're searching for the absolute. That is what life is. That is what existence is, actually. It's not a religion, a religious thing, a religious idea. It's reality. As once Guru said, Krishna consciousness is reality, and it's in your interest to become acquainted with this reality. It's not an Hinduism or an Indian religion or something a particular group of people believe. It's reality, and we have to start thinking of it that way. Therefore, he used that expression, reality the beautiful. Search for Sri Krishna, reality the beautiful. The ultimate reality is beautiful. But what is preventing this is this ego. I'm nobody's servant. I don't bow down to anyone. And it's not even true. It's just, what do you say, posturing. We bow down all the time to all sorts of people and to all sorts of circumstances. We're humbled, we're humiliated. Not just humbled, humiliated. Prabhupada says in one of his purports in the Bhagavad Gita, when one realizes that material existence is a constant source of perplexity at every step, it behooves such a person to approach a spiritual master. Right? So we have this ego that won't allow us to admit, I'm lost. What to speak of others, I can't even take care of myself. I need help. We know devotees at the time of initiation, they very much like to hear the meaning of their name. They're very eager to hear that. And even Guru Maharaj asked Saraswati Thakur, his name was Ramendra Chandra Bhattacharya, he got initiated and his name became Ramendra Sundar. And he said, how shall I, what does that Ramendra here means? And Saraswati Thakur began explaining, Rama, Hare Rama, that Rama is not Ramachandra or Balaram, but Radha Raman, Raman Radha. The lover of Srimati Radharani, when he's giving joy and happiness to Srimati Radharani in divine pastimes. And Guru Maharaj said, and that sound is still ringing in my ear. So even he asked. But Srila Gurudev, he didn't like devotees to ask. It's just one of those things. And sometimes he would say, if they say, what is my name? He'd say, what was your Christian name? And do you know what that means? So once this boy from Australia, who's an excellent craftsman, he made all those tables in the Theistic Media Center at the Sevak Bhavan, Madhuranan. He's sitting on the veranda once and, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Gurudev. And I'm like, yes. Can I ask you a question? And we were like, yeah. He goes, what does Hare Krishna mean? And Gurudev put his newspaper down. He said, what was your name before? He said, Matthew. Gurudev said, what does Matthew mean? He goes, messenger of God. Gurudev said, oh, all right, and folded the newspaper and because usually he'd say, what does that mean? And they don't know what their name means. But he said, messenger of God. And he said, all right. And he started explaining something about Maha Mantra. And I should say, on one level, we're forbidden from going into the detailed explanations of that. And we can say we don't even know them. Right? But this type of analysis. But what you have there, what you've read there,
that sort of general indication is what's given to us. So sometimes Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj as well, and would point out Hare is in the vocative case, which means, in Guru Maharaj's words, no plea is to be attached to this. We're not chanting for something. People have that idea that you'll chant a mantra to get something. Right? So that was Guru Maharaj's expression. No plea is to be attached. Just invoking Hare, Srimati Radharani and Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj, when he gave a general explanation too, said it was like a prayer to be engaged in service. Right? So all of these things, service, seva, das, dasi, Krishna das, Radha dasi, they have some general meaning and some more specific meaning. And Srila Guru Maharaj will say, according to the inner awakenment of the devotee, the aspiring servitor, meaning is attached or revealed, or things reveal deeper sorts of meaning. But one thing Guru Maharaj said that's really astonishing, he said, by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he said, one day you will find that you are in the harem of Krishna. The book that Saraswati Thakur says is perfect in all respects is Sri Chaitanya Charitamritam. Even so much so, he said, if Chaitanya Bhagavat, and sometimes it does, gives a description. These are the men who accompanied Mahaprabhu after he took sannyas. Chaitanya Charitamritam lists another group, saying we will accept what is said, if we're pressed, we'll accept what is said in Chaitanya Charitamritam as the ultimate authority. So really that is where our focus is. But Chaitanya Charitamritam, Chaitanya Bhagavat, if we're unacquainted with spiritual substance, particularly on nuances of Siddhanta, then we may be polluted by reading anything and everything that has the name of Mahaprabhu or Nityananda Prabhu upon it. So what is our necessity? Right? Really, our necessity can be addressed by focusing upon the subject matter of Chaitanya Charitamritam. And what we see there, sometimes it sends us to the pages of the Bhagavatam or some other book. But have to be cautious. Same situation with the Bhakti Ratnakar. So now as popular devotee, because of the internet, they think you can read anything and everything. You don't know what is that book originally, what's the qualification of the person translating that. So many things. And then we'll read something and think that it is authoritative. Why? We should be more careful. Or go to India, visit some place, and the devotees will come back. The pujari at the so-and-so place told this story. He was pujari since last week.
or last month, who is his guru, what is his connection, he's the pujari of the so-and-so place, and he told this story. Many stories are told that are what we call apocryphal. They're of doubtful authenticity. So without becoming acquainted with Gaudiya Siddhanta, as is given in the pages of Chaitanya Charitamritam and under the guidance of our Guru Varga, we won't be in a position to make a judgment on what's proper, improper, authentic, inauthentic. So you can see we're at a distinct disadvantage. So we're even more reliant upon our Guru Varga. What have they selected for us? Are they telling us, oh, you should run here, you should run there? We see where their main focus is and what they've extracted from here. Even the Bhagavatam, Gurudev and Guru Maharaj, they're not telling everyone they should try and make some exhaustive study on their own of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They've selected from there what is essential for us. One lady got initiated and she said, what should I do for my morning sadhana? I said, well, what are you doing now? She said, oh, I chant, my daughter and I, we chant the Narayan Kavacha. I said, why do you do that? She said, well, we read in the book, it says it's so auspicious and it should be done and everyone should... But interestingly, even in Prabhupada's lifetime, one of his disciples, leading disciples, reported to him that he was doing that. And Prabhupada said, why are you doing this? He said, well, you wrote in your book, one should do this and how important it is and you'll get this. So he read in the purport something that it seemed like Prabhupada was giving a resounding, wholesale, full recommendation to do this. But when he talked to him personally, he told you, I never told you to do that. I'm not asking you to do that. But he said, well, in the book, that's another thing. There are so many things. We'll say, one who hears this, one who does that, one is advised to do this. But that's why we have Guru, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnav. You have the scriptures and then the living scriptures. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, among the Daityas, means the demons. Among the demons, when Krishna's, the Vibhuti chapter, the different, of this I'm that, of this I'm that. It says, of the Daityas, the demons, I'm the devoted Prahlad. So, we hear at one point that Hiranyakashipu's wife, Kayadu, is pregnant with Prahlad, but it's unknown to the gods that it's Prahlad Maharaj. They kidnap her and want to engage in infanticide, have the baby born, and then kill, thinking he'll be a great demon, the son of Hiranyakashipu. Narad Muni comes and says, no, actually, this is a great devotee. How great? We also hear in the Bhagavatam. Swayambhur, Shambhu, Manu, Kapila, Narada, Prahlada, Bhishma, Janaka. He's listed as one of the 12 Mahajans. Right? The great Dharmasya Tattvam Nihitam Gahaya Mahajano Yena Kata Sapanta. The great devotees who are delivering real, substantial religion. So Prahlad is born, and parallel to that Shishupal, who when he's a toddler, he's blaspheming Krishna. So when Prahlad went to school, you know, the Sanskrit alphabet begins with Ka. That is the first letter. Kaka, Jajana, Papa, Baba, Ma, etc. Like we have ABCs. I don't know what they have in Russian, but in English they have ABCs. Here, Ka. When he'd say Ka, his body would start trembling. He'd be, because it made him think of Krishna. Even hearing the alphabet, Prahlad Maharaj is so exalted in consciousness that he thought of Krishna and he would go into an ecstatic swoon in front of his classmates, right? Whom he told when he would preach to them, Komara acharet pragyo dharmam bhagavataniha. When should you take up Krishna consciousness? Sometimes in India they say, well, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. First you do Dharma up to the age of 25, then Artha, 25, and Kama up to 50, then retirement, and then maybe when you're in your mid-50s, late 60s, Moksha. Somehow that part never happens. 60s, 70s, it's going far and far. That's not what Prahlad Maharaj says. Prahlad Maharaj says, Komara achare pragyo dharmam bhagavataniha. You should take up Krishna consciousness as soon as possible, preferably in childhood, when you're a child. That's when you should start culturing Bhagavat Dharma, Krishna consciousness. Prahlad Maharaj survives the attacks of Hiranyakashipu, and this leads Hiranyakashipu to wonder about the extraordinary power of Prahlad Maharaj and to inquire from him. Prahlad, where did you get this power? And Prahlad's answer is, from the original source of all power. Where did you get your power? Right? Where you're getting your power, I'm getting mine. It's like the Dylan Thomas line about, does not what is it? That force that drives the fuse in the green flower drive me. So that's a Brahman type description, but he's taking it deeper. And really, it's the same source. Where you get your power, it's where I get my power. And Hiranyakashipu, he is saying, oh, this God of yours, where is he located? Prahlad Maharaj, he's everywhere. When one of Guru Maharaj's relatives saw him becoming we're talking about relative obstruction, one of his uncles saw he's too much inclined towards Krishna consciousness and renunciation. He thought to put a damper on his theistic sentiments, and he said, do you know there are some stars, we are from science, they're so far away, their light has yet to reach the earth. So if there is a God, we're so insignificant. Do you think he has any time for people like us? And Guru Maharaj's response to him was to recall the Upanishads, Ishopanishad, Tadejati, Tadnaijati, Tadure, Tarantike, Tarantarasya Sarvasya, Tadu Sarvasyasya Bahyataha. He's saying, yes, he's very far away, but it says he's also nearest and dearest. Is there anywhere where God is not? Andantarastam paramanu chayantarastam. So his uncle was frustrated. Whereas Guru Maharaj would sometimes say these arguments, how do they end? That man was silenced. He said, is there anywhere God is not? Whereas Bengalis tell Prabhupada, Swamiji, why we must go to the temple to worship? God is everywhere. Prabhupada said, so he's not in the temple? He's everywhere except the temple. That's interesting. God is everywhere, but not the temple. Here, the body is the biological expression of the soul's delusion. That's why there's Jalaja Navalakani Stavra Lakavinshati. Right? Padma Purana saying 8,400,000 species. Don't trip out on the numbers. Right? If you take 3 colors, RGB, or red, yellow, blue, whichever 3 you want to deal with, and start combining them, you get how many variations? Millions. So taking these 3, Tama, Raja, Sattva, millions of variations. That's what they're telling you. The body's the biological expression of the soul's delusion. It's the outcome of exploiting tendency. Ahankar, bhumir, apo, analo, bayu, kamano, buddhir, evacha. Ahankara, itiyame, bina, prakriti, rastadha. Bhagavad Gita. Saying these elements, these mundane elements, form a body that's the gross body that is built upon a subtle body, which is based upon ego. So it's all, and what is that ego tendency? Kartaham iti manyate. Another Gita sloka, what does it say? Prakriti Karanam gunasango asya sadasajjoni janmaso prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani savasyaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So again, ahankar, ego, the ego of exploitation, exploiting tendency, hridrogam, the heart infused with consumer tendency, expressing that, the exploiting tendency, bodies generated from there. But there's another world, right? What is it? Paras tasmat tabhavanyo jiva bhuta sanatana. But beyond this world, there's another world where the body is based upon dedicating tendency. So Guru Maharaj said, in that plane, form and substance are one. And I was just remembering when I first went to the temple, the Sri Sri Radha Krishna temple in Haight-Ashbury in 1969, December of 69, the devotees, and I say this with affection, Trivikram Maharaj, he gets some joy when I say, he said, what was it like? And I said, I thought they were like delightful lunatics, the group. But I remember they would always tell me this. They'd like point to the sky. You see that sky? And I go, yeah. They say, beyond that sky, there's another sky called the spiritual sky, full of planets. And I'm like, wow, man, far out. But they're quoting Bhagavad Gita. Parat tasmat tabhavanyo jiva bhuta sanat. Beyond the sky, Krishna is saying, there's another sky. So that world, and which is the world of our aspiration, in the lives of servitors, we have to also deal with our past, or what's sometimes called prarabdha karma. The karma that you're stuck with in this life, that you generated. We generated this particular body, right, in karmic circumstances before coming in connection with Krishna consciousness. So it has so much karmic destiny in play. Right? Then someone comes in connection with Krishna consciousness. Right? Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kleshagni Subhadam Moksha Lagutakrit Sandrananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Karshini Chasa. He's outlining what is Krishna Bhakti substantially, and what is the outcome, or what are symptoms, what are side effects, what is the outcome. Everything is being taken into consideration, beginning with Klesh Agni, saying the suffering, the conventional suffering that's associated with being embodied, parabdha karma, your accumulated karma in this life, he says it will put an end to that. Right? Now, people will think, well, but we see, devotees are suffering in different ways. It's not like you come in connection with Krishna consciousness and then you never get the flu again. When Gurudev was riding on the train, he would go from Navadip to Calcutta in service to Srila Guru Maharaj when he was Gorindu Brahmachari. And just like people in the modern times, they might say to us, oh, the Hare Krishna. There was a Hare Krishna on the train. These are Bengalis. And so at that time, they called them, Gaurangas. So they're like, hey, Gauranga, we're going to talk to the Gauranga. And they're talking to Gurudev at the time. He's Gorindu Brahmachari. And they're saying, if the devotees, they're supposed to be liberated, how come we see that they get sick? Really, they should be free from any sort of disease and just always be healthy. Why should they be in an unhealthy, a disease condition or any such thing? And Gurudev answered by saying, he said, no, just the opposite. He said, because the devotees, they are escaping Maya. They're on their way out of the material world. So they should be attacked with many varieties of things. There's one Spanish mystic named Miguel de Unamuno. He once said about science that to study something, it has to kill it. It kills something, and then it starts studying it and making so many conclusions based upon discovery. But what is obvious is that the most essential aspect of what was animating, illuminating that form is no longer there. So you're studying a dead body in a laboratory. So often, Srila Guru Maharaj, when he would be fielding different questions, we're asking so many questions, the group of devotees, sometimes he would caution us by saying, we're not studying a dead body in a laboratory, but we're studying something that is living and growing and developing. We hear in the early part of the Gita, 2nd chapter, in Atmagyan, the famous sloka, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara, tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatra namuhyati. I find it interesting. Krishna is giving a very simple example. Right? He's Krishna. If he wanted to give some very complicated, sophisticated example, he can do that. He's Krishna. By his expansion as Paramatma, he's situated in the heart of every living being. So we could make a case that if he's going to give an example, it's a good one, right? sometimes we think, well, what should you say to people in the beginning to try and give them the right idea or the right concept? Well, let's ask Krishna. What would you say? He said, well, I've said in Bhagavad Gita, Dehi nosmen yata dehe, komaram yovanam jara. It's one of the examples he gives there, talking about these different stages of development of the body. But what is constant throughout, the atomic constant, is the soul. They're saying, whether in the embryo, in a little baby, a toddler, a child, a teenager, a young adult, all these different bodies, per se, are there. But what is constant? Here, what is the atomic constant? Atma, Jivatma. And then he says, Tata dehantra prapti dhiras tatra namuyati. After one, and when the soul gives up this body, he'll acquire another one that will be based upon the kind of culture of the last one. Vasamsi janani yata vihaya navani granati parom. Krishna, another example in Gita, says he compares the body to a garment. Like I noticed on my shirt today, like threads coming undone. And then I thought, oh, I've had this shirt for a couple of years now. Then a button will fall off, something. It's like that. As you get older, buttons start falling off, threads start coming undone. That it is a question of faith. Because there are so many books available in the marketplace, say, documenting reincarnation. 100 stories that verify, and someone says, I remember in my former life, or someone woke up in England and suddenly they're speaking perfect French, and many different types of stories are there. But Guru Maharaj, he told this, he said, it's a question of faith. He said, if someone has faith, then hearing a simple example, like Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita, the Dehi nosmen sloka, Vasamsi janani yata vihaya, and the other slokas there, they'll accept this. They'll find it enlightening, illuminating. And he said, whereas if they don't have faith, you can present a mountain of evidence and they won't believe it. It won't be enough for them. But if they have faith, you have a simple example, like Krishna giving, hearing that, there'll be it will register sympathetically in the heart. Shelley's poem called Ozymandias, which is about one of the kings of ancient Egypt, whether it's Ramses I, II, or III, or any one of them, doesn't matter. And in the poem, it's very simple, but a man, he's saying, I met a traveler from an ancient land, and he told me of this very peculiar, extraordinary occurrence that out in the middle of the desert, he saw a broken statue, right? Like from the waist here, it's just broken. The head lying in one place, this part in another, but then from here down and the legs. And then there's an inscription upon the bottom, the base, and it says, I am Ozymandias, king of the world, look upon my kingdom. And he said, but you see, the head broke off, the arms broken, and the head, he said, lying in the sand, it's got this arrogant look. He said, whoever sculpted it did a very good job of conveying the arrogance of this man. But when it says, look upon my kingdom, And he said, all you can see in all directions are the desert sand. There is no kingdom. Bhutva, bhutva praliyate. Again, the world, the whole, what to speak of that kingdom? Everything appears, the whole universe appears, and then it vanishes, along with everything in it. Like Prabhupada would talk about the cosmonaut who was like in space too long, and he kept asking him, where is Moscow? He wanted to look out, where is Moscow? No more Moscow, no more New York, Paris, London. Right? It appears and then it vanishes. So Guru Maharaj said, that self we want to connect to, we and should, it's living in eternity, saying try and take your stand in the faithful world, in the faithful plane. But that, mukti hridvanyata rupam swarupena vibhasiti, is an identity that's capable of growth and development. First comes to mind Srila Prabhupada once saying in his Vyas Puja address, offering to Srila Saraswati Thakur, and here he said, when we speak of the fundamental principle of Gurudev, we speak of something that is of universal application. He said, thus there does not arise any discriminating my guru from your guru or his guru. He said, but there is one guru who appears to us in an infinity of forms to teach you and me and all others. They said the fundamental principle of Gurudev. One who's appearing in an infinity of forms. So, were it not Srila Prabhupada, Srila Swami Maharaj saying this, it might sound like Mayavad. It sounds a little peculiar, considering all the things he said to the contrary. But it's very important what he's described there. So he said the fundamental principle of Gurudev, what we sometimes call Guru Tattva. So he said, one guru appearing in an infinity of forms to teach you and me and all others. Maya, we're told she's ashamed sometimes to come before Krishna because she has this task of deluding the jivas. But that is our choice. Reign in hell, serve in heaven. So for those who opt to reign in hell, which is a deluded position for the eternal servitor of Krishna, then they need to forget their servitor identity and voyeuristically envision themselves as lords, masters. So there's an interesting verse in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It says, Devi hi esha gunamai mama maya dharataya mam evaye prapadyante maya me tam tarantite. So Krishna says, that Maya who's deluding you, who's like impossible to overcome, Mama Maya, she works for me. So on your own, you'll never be able to overcome her, to defeat her. She has some infinite backing. Right? Sometimes Prabhupada would say, we should always remember that, we are very small and Maya is very great.